program is brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
This meeting will come to order. Clerk, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton,
Here.
Emmanuel, Kincaid,
Here.
Klinkhammer,
Here.
Mitchell,
Here.
Strobel,
Here.
T-Walt, Von Hayden,
Here.
Weld,
Here.
Worthman, Jean.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the November 27th, 2017 session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its Monday night session, the council listens to or conducts public hearings and once in a while a public discussion in which we listen to public input and gather information for our deliberative process, which starts tomorrow at our legislative session at 4 p.m. in these chambers. We do welcome those of you who are joining us tonight and are grateful to Community Television for streaming and broadcasting these proceedings for people who cannot attend in person. We have a short but important agenda tonight in that we help some development projects move along, and therefore it's important that we address these items in a timely manner. And with that, we will get going with our first of two public hearings, which are considering some zoning changes. The first, a public hearing on an ordinance amending the general development plan for a C3 mixed-use zoning property at Keystone Crossing Development. Mr. Tufte.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the property. It's located on the north side of Keystone Crossing, east of Gulf Road. And note the surrounding area is all Zone C3. And that's an aerial photo then of the property. It's the top of a hill. And the surrounding area all has various commercial uses. Pier 1 Imports is the blue roof, Oak Point Plaza. Well, this is the existing general development plan for the property, and applicant is requesting that to be amended. And also in your packet is the proposed general development plan. Let's try getting them both on the screen here. There we go. Again, the existing general development plan is at the top of the screen, and the proposed general development plan is at the bottom of the screen. In general, the changes are as follows. This is the existing building number 1, which is under construction at the site to nearly complete the exterior. That remains the same on the change or new general development plan. This is an existing condominium building. It's 3 stories in height, 26 units. It's actually moved to this location on the proposed general development plan. It's now a 4-story structure with 46 units. So they've increased its height and the number of units and moved it from this location over to this location. This is an existing, or this is the approved 4-story office building on the site. It was 23,094 square foot. Again, that's moved then over here. On the proposed general development plan, it's here. It's now reduced in height down to a 3-story office building, but its size has gone up to 38,336 square feet. Then the 4th building on the existing general development plan is eliminated. Let me zoom back down, and we'll just use the existing general development plan, or the proposed general development plan. So now we're down to 3 buildings. The 2 buildings that remain are slightly bigger in size. Overall, the development is relatively the same. Because of the change in the general layout of the project and the increase in the number of dwelling units, it requires going back through a public hearing process with Plan Commission and City Council. There's also a narrative that was provided by applicant that's in your packet and describes these proposed changes. The project density is still within the city code requirements at 6.7 units per acre. The common open space for the project remains relatively the same. The new building 2 encroaches slightly into the 20% slope area, and the applicant has stated they'll move that slightly to the west out of that 20% slope area. Now, the setbacks for the buildings all remain in accordance with city code, and they'll revise the certified survey map from a 4-lot certified survey map down to a 3-lot certified survey map. The parking requirement is 287 stalls. This revised site plan shows 293 stalls, of which 99 stalls are within underground parking in the next building, which is the condominium project, and the existing building, which is under construction at the site. In terms of the building elevations, that's the proposed 4-story condominium building. Again, the 4th floor is recessed back into the building, and that's a equipment storage facility up on the top, parapet type structure. It's mostly a masonry or brick building. In terms of the office building, and that's now a 3-story structure, slightly larger than the previous building on the site. The other aspects of the site plan are reviewed in the staff report. Plan Commission has recommended approval of this amendment to the general development plan, and then the Plan Commission did approve this revised site plan with the conditions listed in the draft letter to applicant, which we also included in your report. And with that, I'd answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? Councilmember Strobel?
Thank you. Mr. Tufti, you said the exteriors are mostly masonry and stone?
It looks brickish to me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And do you know if the overall value of the development has changed much, or is it fairly similar, just changing sizes of the buildings around?
The size overall has remained fairly similar. Applicant is here. Maybe he can address the value of it.
Okay, thank you.
And other questions? Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Tufti, can you describe the stormwater? I know that
the stormwater must meet city code requirements in terms of on-site retention and off-site capacity. The storm drainage for this is along a storm pipe on the side of the hill, so they retain a certain amount and release it at a slow rate into that storm sewer that then heads off into the storm sewer system for the Oakwood Mall area.
Thanks.
And I see no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Tufti. Mr. Tufti said the applicant is here if you wish to speak, or if other members of the public wish to speak about this amendment to the plan. Anybody? No. Okay. The chair will close that item then and bring our attention to a public hearing on another rezoning at a property located at 3004 Dryer Road from a temporary 1A to a residential one. Mr. Tufti.
This is the property at the corner of Dryer Road and Clay Street. You know, the surrounding properties are all zoned R1. And that is an aerial photo showing the home that used to be on the property. And then the surrounding properties are developed with single-family homes. The home that was on this property was destroyed by fire. They wish to place a new home on the site. By ordinance, they need permanent zoning for us to issue a building permit. The comprehensive plan identifies the area as being appropriate for low-density residential development, and the Plan Commission recommended approval.
Questions for Mr. Tufti? I see none. Are there members of the public who wish to speak to this rezoning request? Anybody? There will be decision points on both of these items tomorrow at our legislative session at 4 p.m. But there being no further discussion and no public input and no further business to come before this body, on a motion by Councilmember Strobel, seconded by Councilmember Zhang, we are adjourned without objection.
The Eau Claire City Council meeting will return in a moment. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM. We now return you to the Eau Claire City Council meeting.
This meeting of the Eau Claire City Council will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton. Here. Emmanuel. Kincaid.
Here.
Klinkhammer.
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Strobel.
Here.
T-Walt. Von Hayden.
Here.
Weld.
Here.
Worthman.
Here.
Jean.
Here.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk, and welcome everyone to the November 28th legislative session of the Eau Claire City Council. During its legislative session, the council deliberates and takes action on the agenda items before us. We have prepared for this responsibility by working with citizens and collaborating with staff and reading the considerable amount of materials in our packet. And we arrive this afternoon ready to exercise our duty. We do welcome citizens who are joining us in chambers and are grateful, as always, to community television for streaming and broadcasting these proceedings for people who cannot appear in person. Well, we started out the meeting with some technical difficulties. It appears now that the monitors are working and we should have microphones working at the podium. I have been informed that even if those go out or we have some problems, that our microphones are working on the dais and the feed is intact for the cable feed is intact. So hopefully we'll be okay for the rest of the meeting. The council does have important items on its agenda, so let us begin our work. We start with the consent agenda. Do council members have questions or wish to remove an item for separate consideration? Seeing no such request, on a motion by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, the consent agenda is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton. Aye. Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Jean.
Aye.
And the consent agenda is passed. We begin our business agenda then with item 9, a resolution granting a combination Class B intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage license and a Class A cabaret license to 422 Water Street, the Social Club. Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. As Council President stated, this is a surrender and transfer of an existing Class B license, formerly known as the House of Rock, and it's also an application for a cabaret license to permit live music and dancing in that location. The planned use is a little bit different. It's planned to be used as an event center for weddings, meetings, and other similar events, and it'll be called the Social Club. The venue has no plans to operate as a bar currently. It'll only be open by contract. The food will be catered from Mona Lisa's next door, and they'll use existing staff and equipment to do that, and they hope it to be open by the end of December. So if there's any questions, I can attempt to answer them. The applicant is not here.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger? I see none.
Thank you.
On a motion then by Councilmember Zhang, seconded by Councilmember Worthman, item 9 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Beaton. Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 10 is a resolution authorizing Visit Eau Claire to conduct the New Year's Eve Light Up Eau Claire on Sunday, December 31st, 2017, with a parade and fireworks and entertainment on the top of the North Barstow parking ramp. Mr. Pippinger.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
The special event application before you is a repeat event with changes. This year's event will occur on Sunday, December 31st from 4 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. and will include 2 lighted lantern parades, multi-venue live entertainment, outdoor activities, and a fireworks show at midnight. This is a map of the parade route. Parade route will start at Grand Avenue in Barstow, proceed to the north to Eau Claire Street, from Eau Claire Street to Graham Avenue, down Graham Avenue to the south until they get back to Grand Avenue, and at the starting point will be actually where they'll finish their route. The areas with the stars, again, these are barricades where the roads will be closed during that time of the parade. At Barstow Street and Eau Claire, at Eau Claire and Farwell, at Gibson, right by the Lismore, so the parking ramp would still be accessible, at Grand Avenue and Farwell. Again, this would be on the side, so Farwell Street would still be open for traffic, at South Barstow and Main, and at Graham and Main. So this entire area will be shut off during the time of the parade. The participating businesses include in this name, a few of the businesses will be the Children's Museum, the Lismore, the Lakely, the Plus, the Stones Throw, and the Firehouse. The changes to this year's event include a Rockin' the Rooftop on the North Barstow Street parking ramp. This is the area of the parking ramp. They plan on having this area tented with a band, and also an area within the tent, another tent for where they'll have alcohol being served. Part of the conditions that we required on this part was that they had the area where alcohol was going to be served where it was fenced in, so they have a separation from the drinkers and non-drinkers. And then also the area around on the top, this is on the top deck of the parking ramp, we wanted to have another barrier before the parapet on the parking ramp. It's 42 inches tall. We wanted to keep people away from that, and they agreed to those conditions. Additionally, we requested to have police officer presence during this time, so the group also agreed to that condition. The other area that is different from the previous year is that there will be an area just to the south of the Lismore in a parking ramp. They'll have what they're calling the ice lounge area. In this area, they'll have a bar and lounge area. Again, condition of the special events committee was to have this area fenced off to keep the alcohol consumption away from areas where there wouldn't be any alcohol consumption. They'll have a couple fire pits, an ice sculpture. This is Grand Avenue here. This is Barstow Street. It's the parking ramp that's just to the south of where the Lismore's at. A memorandum was included in your packet to consider the live music request from the applicant. This event will require City Council approval due to the event serving alcohol past sunset or 8 p.m. and the event closing down city streets, and this would be additional city streets from the previous event that they had in 2017. The Special Events Committee approved the application with conditions. As I mentioned before, the alcohol areas have barriers to enclose the areas where alcohol is being served, a barrier around the parapet on the parking ramp to keep the people from the edge of the ramp, and having police presence during the time of on the ramp and during the time of this event. This event is being put on by Visit Eau Claire, Linda John and Kelly Schwach from Visit Eau Claire are here to answer any additional questions, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have also.
Questions for Mr. Pippinger before I invite Ms. John up? Did you? oh. Councilmember Mitchell?
I do. In the letter that you wrote to the council, in your concern about music playing after a certain hour, if the council passes the resolution the way it is, then the music would play until 1 o'clock?
1 a.m.
Okay.
Is it 1:30? What, yeah, the music would end at 1, the music, or the beer sales would go till 1:30.
Thank you.
Councilmember Strobel?
Thank you. Could you put, well, I'll ask you a question on this one. This is the Gibson Street ramp, right? So there's two separate tented areas on two separate ramps?
No, this is not on the ramp. This is actually on the parking
The Four Corners
area.
parking lot there?
Yes, this would be Grand Avenue and Barstow Street,
Okay.
and that's that area where the Lismore's right here. It's just that parking ramp just to the south.
Okay, then if you could go back to the diagram of the parking ramp?
Yep.
If my directions are correct, there'll be a fireworks display
In this
From-
area here.
in that area. That's what I was
Yeah.
wondering if the tent was in the, because the viewing will be from the tent then, or is there going to be a parking allowed up there as well? Where will you expect the viewing to be from the people that are attending at the tent up there?
I'm assuming, and Linda can correct me on this, but the fireworks would be going on here. I would expect the viewing going on in this area here.
Okay, so will parking be restricted on that top level then?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Zhang?
Thank you. Is this the first time alcohol to be served in a special event? Is this the first time the alcohol serving, or has that been served in the past?
On this special event, yes.
Yes.
That's why it's coming back to city council. Last year's event had the alcohol served in the different business areas. So this one is being served in different outside areas of the establishments.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Von Hayden?
Was there any discussion with the apartments or the people living around in the area with the extension of the time for the music later in the evening?
I believe they, and I'll let Ms. John and Ms. Schwak explain that.
Good afternoon. Linda John with Visit Eau Claire. So the question is about notifying neighborhoods. And so Kieran Hamill from Downtown Eau Claire Inc. is with us as well. We had approached the North Barstow Business Improvement District as well as DECI as an organization, have support letters from both of those organizations.
Okay, but the apartments themselves where the citizens are living, any discussion with them?
Are there any representation on the business, on the bid districts? We can't say for certain. We're happy to make those notifications if that would be helpful.
I think it would be a good idea if it was somehow they were at least notified there would be music playing later than the normal time, because we normally have a cutoff time in that area.
Okay.
And it would be helpful to them to be aware that something is going on.
Sure.
Also, I would assume that as it gets later in the evening, hopefully they'd tone it down a little bit.
Okay, I'll make note of that. And we did, there's a 40-foot by 80-foot tent that will be there with 3 sides, and they'll be inside that. So we did that to help, control the sound as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
And while you're at the podium, do you mind if she just talks? Would you like to talk about the event a little bit? So
Yes, absolutely.
thanks.
And I did pass around a flyer, and anyone that wants to find out more, lightupauclair.com. You can find ways to get involved. So this is a community event. It's in its second year. We're really excited about it because it has a lot of different components to it, but also because it has a lot of meaning behind it. This started as sort of a strategic initiative of the Cultural Tourism Committee of Visit Eau Claire, and it was really a takeoff of the Lismore Hotel opening, and Mayor Jenny Dowell from Lismore, Australia, visiting as part of that, and challenging us to try to connect with Lismore, Australia culturally on more than a one-time basis. And she shared with us their Lismore Lantern Parade that actually takes place during the winter solstice in Lismore, Australia. And it's really a fantastic event. And so the whole lantern component is really a cultural connection with our sister city of Lismore, Australia. Additionally, Visit Eau Claire wanted to try to find a way to create a destination event that would help drive tourism. Because that's really core to our mission. And so we were looking for a way to build an event in an unexpected time of year. And so this worked out well. And the third piece of this is that it was a great opportunity for us to use this event as a fundraiser for the operations expenses and reserve funds for the Confluence. And we're very committed to helping that project succeed, and we'd like to see this become an annual event for the Confluence operating reserves. So all of those things came together very nicely. We have a lot of community support. Currently, there's a gala that's part of this. There's the outside wristband venues with entertainment at 9 different venues throughout the community. There's the Little Lantern Parade for the kids, family jazz party at the Children's Museum, the Lighted Lantern Parade at 11, and then fireworks at midnight, all wrapped in lots of music, fun, camaraderie to celebrate the new year.
Do council members are questions okay then?
Okay.
Questions for Ms. John? Councilmember Strobel?
Just a question and a comment, and I think you answered one of my questions. I was asking, I've got your flyer here, but I was wondering what time the Little Lantern Parade was, and then also, I think you just said 11 a.m. was the Lismore Lantern Parade?
Yes. So the Little Lantern Parade's at 5, and the Lismore Lantern Parade is at 11. Is that correct, Kelly? Yeah, at 11.
Okay, and then just my comment, I'm really thrilled to see another use for the parking ramp, that we're utilizing that facility for something like this. I think that's a really cool idea, so.
Yes, and we did allow fireworks viewing from there last year, and it was well-received. We had quite a few people going. It was just kind of a unique opportunity. And then the committee had the idea that adding a little music and fun up there might even make it more of a unique experience. So Irie Soul will be the entertainment on the parking lot and doing the music throughout the fireworks. So we're excited about it. There's ways to get involved from a volunteer standpoint, so anyone in the community that wants to do that, go to lightupauclair.com. And there's also tickets for sale to the gala. And there's, of course, everybody's invited to make their own lantern and come out and participate in the parade as well.
Might be a couple more questions.
Okay.
Starting with Councilmember Mitchell.
I don't have a question, but I was going to say what Councilmember Strobel said, that you should get the award for the best use of a parking ramp on the planet.
Maybe Decky will start that award next year.
Don't say award to Mr. Hamill. He'll turn it into something.
Exactly.
Further questions or comments? The fireworks last year on top of the ramp were really quite magical. I think the crowd was silent. You're so close to them, but there's no danger or anything. But it was really magical, and sort of a silence fell over the people who were watching. It was kind of beautiful.
It was beautiful. It's an 8-minute fireworks show. It was really well done.
Yeah.
So the same producer will be doing that this year as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Ms. John.
Okay, thank you. We'd appreciate your support.
Mm-hmm. So that being the end of the questions on a motion by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember Weld, item 10 is moved. Discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Sean.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye, and that resolution passes. A related resolution is number 11, granting a temporary Class B fermented malt beverage and wine license to Visit Eau Claire for the Light Up Eau Claire event on top of the municipal parking ramp. Some people call it the Strobel ramp now. Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. I believe the first one is actually the parking lot at Barstow and Grand.
Yes. Oh, we don't call it the Strobel parking lot. This is, sorry. We could,
I'm sure we
though.
could make that change.
We could. We can make that change. This is for the parking lot.
Correct.
The Four Corners parking lot.
Yes. Okay, so the applicant agreed at the special events meeting to use all the typical best practices that we ask for. They're going to use wristbands to note those who are 21 and older. They're going to put fencing up around the service and consumption area, noticed on there as the bar lounge area. They'll have volunteers monitoring to make sure the alcohol remains within that fenced area. They'll have IDs checked at the entrance to that service area. They will post signs that say no alcohol beyond this point. They will have City of Eau Claire licensed bartenders, and they'll serve alcohol in clear cups. Their alcohol service will be from 4 p.m. to 1 a.m. in this location. So, any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger? I see none. And on a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 11 is moved. Discussion. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman, Shaw,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. And now we entertain a resolution for a temporary license for the parking ramp. Ms. Stromberger.
Thank you. So this location will use the same safety precautions that I listed out for the previous location. Alcohol service in this location, though, will be from 11:15 p.m. to 1:30 a.m. So they will start service later, but extend later as well. This is a first-time request for this location, so staff chose to pass it on to City Council for your policy consideration. It could have been approved by the Special Events Committee. However, we felt City Council should weigh in on this as it is a different type of use for the parking ramp and certainly different considerations involved with that. So with that, any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer as well.
Questions for Ms. Stromberger? I guess not.
Thank you.
And on a motion by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 12 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman, Shaw,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Happy New Year. Item 13 moves us on to a different topic with a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a state municipal financial agreement and state municipal maintenance agreement for the construction and shared use of State Highway 37. Mr. Solberg.
Good evening, or
Evening.
afternoon.
Afternoon.
The resolution before you authorizes the city manager to enter into those two agreements. The state municipal financial agreement establishes a cost share for the city of Eau Claire for the construction of a trail, and the state municipal maintenance agreement establishes maintenance responsibilities. DOT in 2018 is planning to reconstruct Highway 37 from Claremont Avenue to the south in the Hamilton Avenue intersection area. As part of that project, we requested that a trail connection be constructed along Highway 37, similar to the way it was constructed a few years ago along Claremont Avenue. The DOT agreed and has agreed to pay 80% of the cost, with the city covering 20% of the cost. That would be a cost to the city estimated to be around $43,800. It'll be an 8-foot wide asphaltic trail, and it'll connect the Claremont Trail with the part of the trail we built along Short Street earlier this year, and then the Chippewa River Trail to places further down the road. or trail. That'll take any questions.
Questions for Mr. Stolberg? I see none. Thank you. And a motion by Councilmember Zhang, seconded by Councilmember Worthman. Item 13 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Zhang.
Aye.
Beaton. Aye. Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. We move on to item 14, which is a resolution directing the city manager to develop a plan to provide reduced bus fares for low-income people. This resolution is brought to the council for its consideration by council members Mitchell and Weld. And as the authors, I invite Councilmember Mitchell to speak to the resolution, proposed resolution.
Well, as I said 2 weeks ago, the discussion about transit fares, I think, presented an opportunity for us to work on a plan for reduced or maybe even free rates for low-income people in our community. We've had a lot of discussion the last couple of years about poverty, the Clear Vision Poverty Summit that many of us participated in. On the Board of Health, we're talking about health equity. We already evicted, or many of us did, and we've been working on neighborhood revitalization. And the need for affordable transportation always comes up as a factor in our work to alleviate the consequences of poverty, and a lot of times it's the determining factor. So we bring this, I think, rather simple resolution tonight, just giving the city manager the go-ahead to work on this issue. And of course, there's a lot of work to do. We have to decide what we mean by low income. For our purposes, we have to determine what the cost is going to be, and then, of course, how we're going to pay for it. That's not stuff we're going to do tonight. All we're bringing tonight is a request that the council support the idea that we work on a plan.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Weld?
Thank you, Council President, and I agree with the sentiments and comments from Councilmember Mitchell. I think, if anything, it's going to provide some opportunities that maybe weren't there for those in the past, and I think, we're looking forward to that, whether it's medical or shopping or job-related. We're hoping that it encourages those that were afraid to use or didn't have the means to use it to maybe participate in other activities that they weren't able to do in the past. And we're encouraging public input, both from the council level and from the community too, on ideas and suggestions and comments. Thank you.
Oh, Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. Could I just add one other thing? Since there was an article in the newspaper about this, we've gotten a number of emails from people with all kinds of suggestions that we'll pass on to the city manager.
Next, the chair will entertain questions from the council members to the two authors, and then we'll move the item and move into a discussion period. Okay? So questions about the idea. Councilmember Klinkhammer.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess, other than providing him with lots of suggestions, is all the work going to be done by the city manager and his staff, or are either of you two going to participate in that?
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. I think the city manager is going to do it all by himself. No. No, the city manager and I, of course, have talked about this before it came tonight and worked on the resolution together. And he is going to work with staff, but Councilmember Weld and I plan to help and participate. I really want to work on this as much as I can. And I think that there might be some immediate solution. I think we might be able to build something even bigger than that with nonprofits there's a lot of opportunities, and yes, indeed, I plan to work hard on it.
Other questions for the authors? Councilmember Strobel?
Thank you. What are the expected, like, results and timeframes that you're looking for to bring this back? Is it for the next budget session? Is it prior to that? What are you looking for as far as a timeframe?
Councilmember Wilk?
I know we've had a couple of dates thrown around. Originally it was going to be April 1, but now maybe shooting for March 1 if we can, sooner rather than later. So, and again, I think as mentioned earlier, we really do want to participate and work as hard as we can to help and assist to get this done as quickly as possible. So.
Further, did you have a question? Councilmember Van Hayden?
Not so much a question, but just a general comment with this, that, it's a great idea that you're coming up here to do this, but I think we also should take a hard look at the process when we're doing this of trying to incorporate private-public partnership or citizen partnership, where we can possibility of getting some funds, additional funds into the system to promote it, because this is a great idea to get more people utilizing the buses at a low rate that can't afford to do it. But I think it's also, if we could figure out a way in doing this to incorporate some private groups with foundation contributions in that to help assist it, it would really help.
Councilmember Mitchell?
May I respond to that? I'm familiar with just one example out of the Twin Cities, and they recently raised their fares and then developed a program for reduced rates. Actually, it's $1 a person pays if they meet certain income criteria, and they enlisted nonprofits to vet people, and that's a big contribution. It would cost the city a lot if the city had to do it, and so the nonprofits are helping in that way. So that's an example.
That makes a lot of sense, because to put all that burden on the transit or the city staff to vet all the people, whether at income levels, can be a tricky proposition. So anything we can do to make this a community effort, not just a city effort, would be advisable.
And Councilmember Beaton?
Thank you. I did have a question about how you envision defining low income, but you said that was going to be something that was kind of be a part of that process. But could you speak to that a little bit more, just to give us an idea of your vision more broadly? Or I guess I'm not asking you to define what you envision as low income, but how do you see that process working, and what would you like to see come of that?
Member Wilk.
Thank you. We've talked about either looking at those families that qualify for school lunch programs, those that are calling for some sort of food assistance, if they qualify for that, whether it's income-based or such, contacting all, departments, social services and different departments that are working hand in hand with low-income families and trying to either collectively with them together or individually, sit down with them and try and find out what their needs are and how we can reach these people and how we can qualify those people. And I'm sure it'll be a difficult task, but maybe not as difficult if everyone helps out. So.
Councilmember Mitchell.
And I would also say that what we might come up with initially doesn't have to be how it stays forever if we find that we want to change it. I will again use the Twin Cities example. They use people who are eligible they have to be 50% of median area income, and then if they're eligible for reduced or free lunch, WIC, or Section 8. But that doesn't have to be our criteria. Ours could be completely different. And in response to your question, I don't have a suggestion or an idea.
And question, Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. To the authors, part of my concern about this is that we're asking the city manager and staff to start working on a plan, different decision points, but not knowing how many folks we think will be covered and what that cost will be. And so I wonder if you are entertaining or open to the idea of having the city manager come back before the March, I believe it was, first deadline, to help get guidance on who we're talking about, how many riders, what the cost options are before a plan is developed.
Councilmember Mitchell?
We specifically left the language in the resolution flexible. It says he will report back by March 1st. And it also says that he'll provide an opportunity for input by council members. So I'll leave that up to him. That means that he's going to ask people if they're interested, what they think, and then also he may come back by March 1st with a plan or a report, depends on how it's going. But this shouldn't be, I know it's not going to be real easy, but it shouldn't be rocket science. A lot of cities have done this. So once again, I say if we can start with something that we can build on over time.
And there being no further questions, the chair will move item 14 on a motion by Councilmember Mitchell and seconded by Councilmember Weld, which opens up the item for discussion if there's more discussion amongst us. Otherwise, the resolution on page 78 of our packets is moved. Any further discussion? Councilmember Worthman?
Council President, the resolution's moved, but are the authors going to speak to it, or has that already happened? Okay. I would like to offer an amendment. And actually, I have a few different ideas for amendments this evening. And I'll pass them around, but the first one I want us to consider is actually defining low income. And one of the ways, there are a number of different measures, but United Way's ALICE report is something that a lot of nonprofits locally use as a measure of folks who are living on a fixed income or low income. And so I want us to consider therefore be it resolved an additional clause that includes the United Way's ALICE report as a benchmark for poverty level. Oh, sorry.
Once we see the amendment, do people have it already? Do you have a copy already? Then the chair will seek a second.
Just one.
Kate doesn't need one. She has them already. Do you have one? Oh, actually, Ms. Morrell, Councilmember Strobel is asking if we can see the resolution on the monitor, if you have a paper. Not the amendment, the original resolution. Do we have that? So we can just take a minute and read the amendment before I seek a seconder. Okay. And the motion has been offered, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilmember Beaton. Do you have further statement on your motion to amend?
Thank you, Council President. I do. And just to help offer more guidance to the city manager as this work progresses, I think this is a helpful way, not just for, at this point, we don't know. Low income could mean 80% of the current bus riders. It could be in 50%. And we don't really know that. But setting some sort of a definition is important. And I think this helps do that. And United Way's ALICE report is well respected in our community by many nonprofits. And so that's essentially what this definition would help to do.
Councilmember Van Hayden?
I won't support the amendment, and the reason is very simple. The resolution, as I understand it, and I don't want to take the thunder away from our people that presented it, but was very simply to set a process going forward where we could start the analysis. And by eliminating or defining the method of saying the poverty level, there's all different ways of doing it. There's not just one way. And I'm not criticizing the way that you mentioned it. This may be a great way, and it may be the way that we come there. I wouldn't have a problem with this being a suggestion that the city manager consider this in his analysis as one of the methods of determining the poverty level, but I don't think we should define how we're going to do this until we have a chance to look at all of the things, and then the city manager can report back to council. Council then can evaluate what the costs are, the different methods there, and then come up with which one they feel would be the most appropriate. So for that reason, I think the resolution as written, which is, I'll use the word, relatively simple and succinct in how to do this to get it started, but it doesn't define any parameters, makes the most sense at this time.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. I'll be voting no on this amendment as well. Alice refers to asset-limited, income-constrained, employed. And I have that here because we've been talking about this at the Board of Health as well. It's not people on a fixed income. It's people who are employed but don't make enough to have a high quality or a good quality of living in the county. And it's a program that United Way funds, and it's very important, and Councilmember Worthman is right that nonprofits use it a lot. But as a measure for who would be eligible for this particular thing, it would be very difficult to implement. And it's very possible that people who fit under the Alice definition in our county might indeed get reduced rates. But I think this would be something that we might look at down the road and not the initial criteria that we would use. So it would be much more clearly defined and easier to implement.
Further discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Klinkhammer?
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Von Hayden. I think that the intent was to afford the city manager and his staff the amount of latitude that they want or need to bring something to us that makes sense. I think limiting it out of the gate does not help the process, and I'm not going to support that.
And there being no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll. This is a vote on the amendment, the motion to amend.
Councilmember Weld,
No.
Worthman,
Aye.
Zhang,
No.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid,
No.
Klinkhammer,
No?
Mitchell,
No.
Strobel,
No.
Von Hayden.
No.
And that motion to amend fails 7-2. You indicated, Councilmember Worthman, that you have other amendments to offer?
I do. Thank you, Council President. As many of you know, we have a transit development plan coming up next year. Transit development plan is normally the place where this would be looked at, but my understanding from the authors is that we're looking a little more short-term, and so I have an amendment that actually says, let's incorporate a long-term look at this exact thing into our transit development plan, the normal place where this would be included. And I'll pass out this amendment. Sorry, let's go this way.
We've had a minute to read the one sentence. Do you have further comment on your motion to amend? Oh, yeah, first I'll seek a second. Sorry. Seconded by Councilmember Beaton. Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. Again, this essentially asks that as we do RFPs for our transit development plan next spring, that a longer-term look at how do we provide affordable and expanded access for low-income riders be included in that RFP, because this is something that we've talked about, and it's something that I think the council cares about, and it's also, again, the strategic long-term way that this exact thing would be looked at.
Councilmember Weld?
Thank you, Council President. You know, part of the reason the urgency is that we are approving a fee raise, an increase in fees for 2018 already. So, you know, across the board, everyone's going to see an increase, low income and you know, regular income, you know, everyone's going to see that increase. So we thought that at least if we could get something going sooner rather than later, at least for the majority of the year of 2018, some of the lower income families could see a reduced fare sooner rather than waiting until the transit project in 18, and then that wouldn't be incorporated till 2019, if I understand that correctly. So I think these, you know, all are important. I agree. It needs to be included in that, this whole discussion, and I'm sure that will be a large part of that discussion. But I think I'd rather see something started sooner rather than later, but and still make it part of that project next year. And same with the Alice too. I think we all are going to work hard on it. I think all these different ideas and suggestions are all going to be used for the one purpose, and that's to create some sort of either free or low fares for low-income families.
Could I ask a point of inquiry?
Councilmember Worthman?
Of the authors or of the transit manager, is the intent of the resolution on the table that that it would be implemented during the fiscal year of 2018, or that it would be for 2019?
Councilmember Mitchell?
We're actually hoping that we'll be ready by March 1st of 18. Yeah, we're going to do this sooner than later.
Councilmember Van Hayden?
May I ask a question of the transit manager?
Mr. Wagner?
The question that I have is, when you do your RFP for transit development plan for 2018, do they do a fee study in that analysis, or is that more looking at distribution rides or areas to cover in this, or what really is all included in the transit development plan related to rates?
Thanks for the question. That is up to us. We can write the scope to have them look into this issue and what the cost of implementing something like this would be, and how many people. I mean, they could do surveys that would try to address our current ridership, you know, but then obviously we're not reaching the people that aren't using the transit system, and maybe that is a financial reason why they're not using it. So, I mean, we could have them look into those things as part of the scope of work.
Have we done anything like this in previous transit development plans?
Not as, I've been here since 1997, so I've been through, this will be the 4th transit development plan, and it was not part of any of the previous 3.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Beat?
I guess I just wanted to clarify that as far as I understand it, this amendment wouldn't seek to replace the process of this more short-term scope, rather add to it and create a longer-term scope in directing staff, in addition to directing staff to look at, you know, a plan for March, also directing them to look at adding further study in the transit development plan. And so to your comment, Councilmember Weld, I agree that rates should be lowered as soon as possible. And I think that we do also have an opportunity to, in this resolution, to make it even more meaningful than it already is, and try to look at something more long-term for our transit development plan. And so I guess I just wanted to clarify that this, as far as I understood it, this amendment wasn't seeking to replace anything in your resolution. Just add to it.
Councilmember Mitchell?
When is the RFP for this, for the transit development plan go out?
We'd have to, it would take some time. It would be sometime in 2018. We would work with the Transit Commission to have a committee to help develop the scope of work, because that's what's going to determine the cost of the plan. And I believe the budget calls for $95,000 is what we're looking for. So that's what's been set aside in the budget for 2018. So to answer your question, it'll go out basically as soon as we can get all that stuff together. And what I'm hearing is sooner the better.
Councilmember Klinkhammer?
Thank you. This resolution that's before us is the result of a rather lengthy debate that we had regarding the fare increase. In the years that I've been on the council, we have never directed the Transit Commission in any way in terms of what they should put in their transit development plan. And I don't know why we would want to start now. This issue is an effort on our part to do something as quickly as feasible to help increase ridership by people that are finding it to be a financial hardship to do it now. At a time when the Transit Commission is putting together their transit development plan, if they choose to do it, it's their call.
Councilmember Von Hayden?
I concur with Councilmember Klinkhammer on this. I don't think the council should be dictating to the transit director or the Transit Commission how they do their development plan. We can give them suggestions, and if they, as he stated, would like to incorporate them. And in fact, if we pass this resolution and get going on it, and we find by March 1st, we need to do some extensive surveys in the city or study in the city to come up with certain things, at that time, the suggestion can be made, maybe then that should be incorporated in the development plan. Because what we don't want to do is supersede the authority of the Transit Commission. We want to give them the opportunity to give us suggestions on which is the best way to operate the system in the city of Eau Claire, and not for us to dictate to them, nor do we want to put something into their development plan that would mean they don't have the funds available to do maybe some more important things. And I'm not saying that this isn't important for the low-income people to get a development, but there may be the ridership, the lines, and other things, maybe some other things that would supersede it. So I think the best thing to do is to pass our resolution as is. We have now made the suggestion to the Transit Commission. They can take a look at it, and if they want to incorporate it, it's their option.
Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. City Council went through an entire long process, couple years, looking at what the role is of our boards, committees, and commissions, and I wish there had been the same strong voice that we have no place in helping set the agenda, but that wasn't the conversation at the time. When we looked at Transit Commission, when we looked at sustainability and all these other commissions, it was back and forth communication. If we have a recommendation, we can give it, but at no point was it they have the authority and we can't tell them what to do. We set policy. Council President said we set policy. It's pretty strong. So don't tell me at this point now that we can't encourage the Transit Commission to think of this in their RFP development. I think this is well within our means, and I think council members who talked about our strong role as policymakers would agree this is well within our means to help set the agenda.
And further discussion on the amendment? There being none, clerk, please call the roll. This is on the motion to amend, the second motion to amend.
Councilmember Worthman,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
No.
Klinkhammer,
No?
Mitchell,
No.
Strobel,
No.
Von Hayden,
No.
Weld,
No.
And that motion to amend fails on a 6-3 vote. And Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. I have a further amendment that I would like to move that amends the last whereas, be it therefore resolved clause to solicit input from transit riders and stakeholders in the Chippewa Valley through a listening session or open house, which is, sorry, I should hand you this whole thing. My apologies. I'll just hand it out and folks can have a look at it.
We've had a moment to look at this latest motion to amend. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Beaton. And further comments on your motion, Councilmember Worthman?
Thank you, Council President. I think that whether it's the Poverty Summit or Clear Vision or all the different ways that we as a community work with stakeholders, and in this case, I envision riders of the bus and other stakeholder groups to be involved in this process. I think it's a really important way to help this move forward. And so I put in forward, for your consideration, in addition to the last be it therefore resolved clause, that would include an opportunity for riders and the public to be involved as this plan is being created.
Further, Councilmember Beaton.
Thank you, Council President. I really hope that we will consider this amendment. I think that public input, especially when it comes to something as important as the transit system, as Councilmember Mitchell had said, we hear from people during the Poverty Summit or in conversations all around our city that the transit system is integral to the success and health of all of our citizens, and particularly those living in poverty. And I think that with something like this that impacts people's lives so directly, it's important that we get the input from the exact people who are using the system. I think that we generally can just be doing a better job across the board soliciting input from the public. 2 weeks ago, we voted to increase rates without soliciting the input from the public and transit riders. And in fact, the only input that we got was from the Transit Commission, and we decided to ignore their recommendation and voted to increase ticketing for downtown parking. And so I really hope that this time, that this opportunity that we have, we do look for that input and use it really meaningfully, because this is something that will really impact people's lives very directly. An example of, why we, beyond really the cost, the bare bones kind of cost of what people are going to be paying, a good example of why stakeholders really need to be involved is that we, in preparation for this vote tonight, I had the opportunity to talk to some transit riders, and they explained the process of getting discounted passes for students or for the elderly, folks with the disabilities, and to my surprise, they told me that it was extremely difficult. And actually, we had a long conversation, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if I even understand it now, how to go through that process. There's many steps involved, and as somebody who doesn't ride the bus a lot, to be honest, I can't imagine somebody who needs to ride the bus in order to get to work, but not knowing how to get those discounted rates that they need. And if we're going to be adding a new discounted rate, which I think that we should be doing, we need to make sure that people can access that physically. They know how to get to that place. And so I think that is exactly why we need to be looking for input, so that we can hear those stories from people and consider how we can make that access as easy as possible. So, thank you.
Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. May I ask Councilmember Worthman a question? What's the difference once we have transit riders? Who are stakeholders?
Yeah, both. All.
Who are stakeholders? What does that mean?
Oh, stakeholder organizations that help promote and advance public transit in our city. Potentially nonprofits. Groups that would see an interest in being involved in helping to provide more access. That's who I think of as.
And there being no further discussion, Councilmember Beaton?
I just wanted an opportunity to respond to that question as well, if that's okay. I think that we left this kind of open as in the style of the rest of the motion to leave that up to the city staff and to the city manager to identify, the city staff knows those stakeholders. And as they go through this process, like the other parts of this motion, they'll have that autonomy to identify stakeholders and important people who might need to have a voice in this process. So that's how I imagined it, at least.
And then there being no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll on the third motion to amend, which is before us.
Councilmember Zhang,
No.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid,
No.
Klinkhammer,
No?
Mitchell,
No.
Strobel,
No.
Von Hayden,
No.
Weld,
No.
Worthman.
Aye.
And that motion fails on a 7-2 vote.
Thank you, Council President. I won't offer a further motion, but I would still like to speak to this resolution before we vote on it.
Discussion is still in order on the resolution as not as unamended. I think that's a word, not as amended. Councilmember Worthman?
Sure. Thank you, Council President. One of the things that is kind of baffling to me is that we spent 3/4 of a year on the process of increasing rates for some of these exact same riders. 3/4 of a year. Transit Commission, budget process, budget amendments, passing it 2 weeks ago, and now we're talking about how to not raise it for those same riders. And so while I appreciate the work that's being done here, I'll remind my fellow council members that, and you all know this, that either we're going to look at ways to provide the service differently, or we're going to look at elsewhere in the budget, where can we make a different priority choice. And obviously, public-private partnership could be a big part of this, and I think that holds a lot of promise. But I think we come back to the exact same discussion that we had 2 weeks ago about how do we make our city buses, our transit accessible and affordable, and how do we make that a higher priority? And I'm glad to see the priority level has just notched up a little bit this council meeting. I thank you for that. It's just, again, it's kind of eye-opening to me that we spent the entire year on it, 3/4 of a year, and now we're here. I will be supporting this tonight, and I appreciate Councilmember Weld and Councilmember Mitchell's work on this exact issue, and the work going to be put in by the city manager in coming months. And I look forward to ongoing discussion also about how to make this more sustainable long-term in our transit development plan. I think there's a huge opportunity to look at not only how do we reduce fares for the current riders who are lower income, but how do we actually look at increasing the number of folks riding our bus who otherwise can't afford it. Maybe we should have a goal of tripling our ridership for low-income riders, something along those lines. You know, those are the kinds of things I think could be done long-term in our transit development plan. So I'll be voting on this tonight.
And further discussion? Councilmember Beaton.
Thank you. I will also be supporting the motion, and I also thank Councilmembers Mitchell and Weld for making this a priority. I do hope that we can ensure that we come to a decision that is most conducive for the actual people that will be using this system as low-income folks, and I do hope that we can find a way to make sure that those people who are eligible can actually access the program, because, like I said, I'm not sure that that is as accessible as it could be. I will admit that I do also feel a bit confused and frustrated that, you know, the way I do truly, I have to say, I don't know how to put this into words, but I feel that we're making this decision, it's a very similar decision that we made 2 weeks ago, and I just feel confused why we didn't make this decision 2 weeks ago. I wish that we could have done that. So I just feel confused, I think. And so I guess out of this, I'm hoping that we maybe come to an even more creative solution than what we could have 2 weeks ago, and that's definitely something that we should all expect. So, but like I said, I will be supporting it tonight.
And there being no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
And that resolution passes unanimously as people are present. We continue with our business agenda with a resolution number 15, establishing the 2017 tax levies for taxes collectible in 2018 and setting the tax roll for all government units within the city. Mr. Winzens.
Thank you, Council President Kincaid. If it's okay with you, I'd like to just do the presentation on the next two items, since they're very much related to each other. This is I guess, the final step in the 2018 budget process. 2 weeks ago, the City Council approved the general fund operating budget and the budget for other funds for 2018. One of the primary revenue sources for the general fund operating budget, as well as the operating budgets of the library and health department, is the property tax levy. So the resolution before you this evening establishes the property tax levy for the general fund for the L.E. Phillips Memorial Public Library and the City County Health Department, and also establishes the levies, or adopts the levies, if you will, for the other overlying taxing jurisdictions, including Eau Claire County, Eau Claire School District, Altoona Schools, Chippewa Valley Technical College, and the Chippewa County and Chippewa Falls area schools as well, and or at least those portions within the city of Eau Claire. So I would be happy to answer questions on this item. The next item sets the tax rate for those taxing jurisdictions, and the tax rate is just a matter of dividing the tax levy by the assessed valuation of the community to arrive at a tax rate for those particular areas. So these two items are very much intertwined.
Questions for Mr. Winzens. Councilmember Mitchell?
Thank you. The state legislature was looking at eliminating the personal property tax, was it not? And did they do that?
They eliminated a portion of the personal property tax. They're in the process of phasing that out. So they did eliminate or create some additional exceptions to the personal property tax, but have not fully eliminated it at this point.
So it doesn't affect 2017?
No, it does not affect.
It will next year.
Right. Well, it affects 2017 for the portions that were eliminated, and those have been taken into consideration in the motions before you.
Any further questions for Councilmember Strobel?
Thank you. On the personal property tax, that was offset, was it not, with a credit?
Yes, municipalities will be receiving a credit based upon a frozen personal property tax rate for, I believe it was for 2016. So we'll receive those same amounts plus a escalation factor going into the future. I wouldn't be surprised if the legislature continues this trend and looks at eliminating the personal property tax entirely in a future session as they're able to fund that hold harmless to municipalities.
And there being no further questions, thank you, Mr. Winzens. On a motion then by Councilmember Beaton, you ready for a motion? Seconded by Councilmember Weld. Item 15 is moved. Discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Kincaid,
Aye.
Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Strobel,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman, Jean,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
And that resolution passes. Item 16, as presented by Mr. Winzens, is a resolution levying the tax rate. There being no further questions, and on a motion by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, discussion would be in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Klinkhammer,
Aye.
Mitchell, Strobel,
Aye.
Von Hayden,
Aye.
Weld,
Aye.
Worthman, Jean,
Aye.
Beaton,
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye. And that resolution passes. Item 17 is a resolution terminating tax increment District Number 5 in the Gateway Northwest Business Park. Mr. Winzens.
Pleased to bring forward this evening a resolution terminating tax incremental District Number 5 in the Gateway Northwest Business Park. It's always good when we're able to terminate a TID because that means that the tax incremental district has produced sufficient revenue to pay off the project costs associated with that district, and we can return those properties to the normal property tax roll. TIF number 5 was created in 1997 to finance public infrastructure in the Gateway Northwest Business Park. The base value at the time the district was created was just a little bit under $1 million. And that valuation as of December 31, 2016 was $59.8 million. So as you can see, TIF number 5 has been very successful in terms of generating significant new investments within the city of Eau Claire and increasing the property valuation within our community. At this point in time, the tax incremental district has accumulated sufficient tax increments to pay off the project costs and any future debt service costs associated with financing those project costs. Any excess increments that remain within the TIF will be distributed to the overlying taxing jurisdictions in proportion to how they contributed to the district. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Questions for Mr. Winzens? Councilmember Strobel?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple, Mr. Winzens. So the increment that was going to pay for this, now there's a benefit now to the property taxpayer, correct? Because that is no longer going to pay the debt or any of the requirements of the TID. So do we know what the benefit is to the taxpayer now that that TID is paid off? Do we have a clue, like $150,000 home or however you figure it out?
No, not exactly, but if you look back at one of the previous agenda items when we set the tax levies. I believe that was agenda item number 15. On that item, you'll see that there's a TID levy on that particular item, which is part of the property tax levy. So the total TID levy for this particular district was a little bit over $1 million. So really that drops the property tax levy for the entire city of Eau Claire, not just the city taxes, but the city, the county, the library, by about $1 million. The property tax levy decreases. So that is a significant benefit to the community.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then one more question. I don't know, give me a little history on this at all. How many other TIDs have we paid off? Do we know how many we have outstanding yet? Can
I
you
believe,
give us a background?
I believe with the closure of TID 5, we'll have, I believe, 5 active TIDs. We've created a total of, actually, we're up to TID 12, but TID 1, I believe, was never actually created. So I believe we've closed 6 districts and have 5 open.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Mitchell?
When people pay off their mortgage, there's often a mortgage burning party. Are we going to light a match to the project plan outside the front door?
Well, I think we have to retain those for 7 years, but we might be able to make a copy and have a project plan burning party with a copy.
It's good news then. It means we're well managed. Thank you. On a motion then by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Strobel, item 17 is moved and discussion is in order. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Jean.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
And that resolution passes. We have 3 ordinances for adoption tonight. The first, item 18, being an ordinance adopting Chapter 15.04 of the Code of the City of Eau Claire entitled Sewer Service Charge to increase the sewer user charges as proposed in the 2018 operating budget. Did you have a presentation, Mr. Winzenz? We've had the charges to review. I'll just ask if there are questions. Questions? And there being none, on a motion by Councilmember Zhang, seconded by Councilmember Worthman, item 18 is moved and discussion is in order. And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman.
Aye.
Jean.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. Item 19 is an ordinance amending the general development plan for C3 mixed-use zoning for the Keystone Crossing development. Do council members have questions of Mr. Tufti? On a motion then by Councilmember Beaton, seconded by Councilmember Weld, item 19 is moved. Any discussion? And there being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Von Hayden.
Aye.
Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Jean.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. And lastly, an ordinance rezoning property at 3004 Dryer Road. Questions for Mr. Tufti? On a motion then by Councilmember Klinkhammer, seconded by Councilmember Von Hayden, item 20 is moved and discussion is in order. There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Weld.
Aye.
Worthman. Jean.
Aye.
Beaton.
Aye.
Kincaid.
Aye.
Klinkhammer.
Aye.
Mitchell.
Aye.
Strobel.
Aye.
Von Hayden.
Aye.
And that ordinance is adopted. There are 3 ordinances for introduction. It is my responsibility to read them into the record. The first, an ordinance rezoning property at 4803 and 4819 Bullis Farm Road from C3P to R3P with a general development plan for 2 20-unit assisted living memory care or CBRFs. The second item for introduction is an ordinance amending Table 8 and 9 of the code entitled Parking Prohibited and Parking During Specific Hours. And lastly, a charter ordinance relating to the city council and the reapportionment of aldermanic districts in the city of Eau Claire. Do council members wish to suspend the rules and take up any introduced ordinance? I see no such desire. Announcements are then in order. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Madam President. We've got a fun weekend coming up with some real nice, exciting activities surrounding winter and Christmas time. Friday afternoon is the Let It Glow ceremony where the lights will be turned on in Phoenix Park at 5:30, and so you'd be encouraged to come down to that. Then there's going to be some fireworks and then a winter parade at 6:30. So Friday night with the Let It Glow and the winter parade downtown should be a lot of fun, and certainly welcome all of you to come and participate. Then Saturday afternoon from 1 to 5 downtown is the Christmas time in the city with the lighting of the Christmas tree at 4:30. So again, welcome all of you to come downtown and enjoy the festivities that we have as we welcome winter. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. December is upon us. Here it comes. Announcements by council members. Councilmember Mitchell.
Thank you. I passed out at your places tonight the invitation to the annual volunteer breakfast, where we invite the members of all the city's committees, boards, and commissions, and council members and staff. It's a very well-attended event. We have a good time every year. I think this is the fifth, thereabouts, at Hobbs on January 2nd. And would you please, council members, let me or Kathy know of your attendance plans. I hope you can all make it. Thank you.
Councilmember Strobel?
I was just going to mention that after all the fun activities on Saturday night, everybody should go home and root for the Wisconsin Badgers as well.
Yay. Go Badgers. Any other announcements? There being no further business then to come before this body, on a motion by Councilmember Mitchell, seconded by Councilmember Weld, we are adjourned without objection.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689. Or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.